Welcome to the Gospel Minded Momma podcast. I'm Anna Marti, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. This is a space for moms doing hard things with little sleep, heavy hearts, a deep love for our children, and wanting to learn how to lean on Jesus when motherhood feels overwhelming. Here, we don't pretend it's easy. We bring the mess, the exhaustion, the doubts, and we bring them straight to God. Because the gospel meets us right where we are, and God is faithful to carry us when we struggle to keep going. Join me as we do hard things, lean on God, and seek to glorify Him in motherhood. I'm so excited to bring you on this journey of seeking God and finding hope in Him when motherhood is hard. Are you a mom raising your child with ADHD? Whether you suspect ADHD in your child or have a formal diagnosis, this episode is for you. God chose you for your child, and He didn't make a mistake in creating them. This episode is a space for moms that are tired of being exhausted, tired of worrying what other people think of their kids' behavior, tired of feeling like a failure, and wondering if the seeds of truth that we are planting in our children will land on fertile or rocky soil. The screaming, oh, how loud it was. We were in the midst of a full-blown meltdown. Why? I'm glad you asked, because our small group had finished up and we were leaving, transitioning to go home. I could sense my temper rising and my blood boiling as I could feel all of the people in the room staring and felt they were watching my and my son's every move. These people also loved Jesus and were close friends, but it still felt overwhelming, and I didn't know how to help my son get through the transition of having to say goodbye and get into the car. He didn't want to say goodbye because he was sad. He didn't want to leave his friends. And that was overwhelming to him, and he couldn't express it any other way than to cry and have a meltdown on the floor. The screaming kept going, and it was accompanied by kicking and thrashing. Trying to get PJs on seemed like trying to climb Mount Everest. Impossible. Was this my future now? Every time we transitioned to something else, would I have to deal with this level of a meltdown? I cried out to the Lord and said, I feel like I can't do this. I need your help. Now, years later, I realize that God slowly gave me tools that I needed to be able to help my kids through meltdowns like that, to be able to help them to regulate their nervous system and to speak truth into their lives when everything felt overwhelming, and to help them to lean on God and to trust Him. I want to read some scripture for you. It's from Hebrews 12, 1 and 2, and it says, Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before Him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Being a mom of a kid that has ADHD can be difficult. It can be overwhelming and exhausting. And I want to share with you what ADHD actually is. And this is taken from the Attitude magazine, and it says ADHD, which stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, is a complex brain disorder that impacts approximately 11% of children and almost 5% of adults in the U.S. ADHD is a developmental impairment of the brain's executive functions. People with ADHD have trouble with impulse control, focusing, and organization. Neuroscience, brain imaging, and clinical research tell us a few important things. ADHD is not a behavior disorder. ADHD is not a mental illness. ADHD is not a specific learning disability. ADHD is instead a developmental impairment of the brain's self-management system. Both adults and children can be diagnosed with ADHD. I found that interesting that even though it has disorder in its name, it's actually an impairment of how the brain manages things. In other words, the brain is created differently from people that don't have ADHD. And so I also wanted to go through and just talk about the different types of ADHD that kids can have and what those might look like. There are 3 different types. One is hyperactive impulse ADHD. This is also taken from the Attitude magazine, but it says people with this act as if driven by a motor with little impulse control, moving, squirming, and talking at even the most inappropriate times. They are impulsive, impatient, and interrupt others. The second type of ADHD is inattentive ADHD, and people with that have difficulty focusing, finishing tasks, and following instructions. They are easily distracted and forgetful. They may be daydreamers who lose track of homework, cell phones, and conversations. It says experts believe that many children with the inattentive subtype of ADHD may go undiagnosed because they do not tend to disrupt the learning environment. And the third type of ADHD is a combined type where they have both hyperactive and inattentive. And individuals with combined type ADHD display a mixture of all the symptoms. So those are the 3 different types of ADHD. It's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all where everybody reacts the same or has the exact same symptoms. Each person is different with their ADHD. Each person is created uniquely in the image of God. So each of our kids are not a mistake. They weren't created this way by accident. God has created them the way that they are to glorify Him. And when we as moms are able to view our kids that they are created for a purpose, and even these things that may seem like flaws or struggles that they may have might be the very same things that are going to help them to succeed or excel in the future. I am excited to share with you that I have written a children's picture book about finding hope in grief. It's called Henrietta Harmonica Finds Her Song, and it was inspired from my own journey of grief after my dad passed away in 2021. My passion for this book is to help point kids, their parents, and grandparents that are grieving to hope in God through Scripture. That's where you come in. I need help getting the word out. More people sharing about this book equals more lives changed. We live in a broken and grieving world. Will you help me bring hope through this book? If that's something that you are excited about, I would love for you to share about Henrietta Harmonica Finds Her Song. You can find a link to it in the show notes. I'd like us to think about, in our walk with the Lord as moms, we don't necessarily do things right the first time. And sometimes it can take us time after time after time to learn things. Especially for me, it feels like patience is one of those things that it takes me over and over and over to learn. And I'm so thankful that God is patient with me and He allows me to learn things in the time that it takes me to learn them. Now, if only we would look at our children in that same light, that same way, that we would have patience with them as they are trying to learn a new task, that we would not expect them to get it learned in the time that we want them to learn it, but that we would allow them to slowly become better at it and learn it in their own time. So I challenge you to look at your children. Try to look at them the same way that God looks at you and give them patience this week. If they're not doing something right when you ask them, just wait a few seconds and see if that changes. Count to 10 in your head and see if your child starts to follow that task. Sometimes it may be a little bit of a delayed reaction, but they may still follow the task. I just wanted to share a few of the things that are symptoms or that can be symptoms for ADHD. We're going to do more episodes down the road that focus on specific symptoms of ADHD and practical ways and how to address those and help your child with those. But here are some of the symptoms that come along with ADHD with inattention. My child has trouble paying attention. My child makes careless mistakes. It's very difficult for them to stay focused on homework or other tasks. Even when I speak directly to my child, they don't seem to listen. My child is disorganized and even with my help can't seem to learn how to become organized. They lose things necessary for tasks or activities such as toys, homework, assignments, pencils, books, and so on. Side note, I have a funny story for this one, losing things that are necessary for a task. When I was in 6th grade, I was playing for the girls' basketball team, and I was so excited. We were going to have our first game, but we had to travel to another elementary school to play that game. Super excited. We get on the bus, we get there, and I realize that I have left my jersey hanging up in my locker at our school. So I had no jersey, no shorts, nothing to be able to play. I had my shoes, but I didn't have my uniform. And so I was so upset with myself that I forgot this. But I was thankful that our manager, for some reason, our manager also had a jersey and shorts, a uniform. And so I was able to borrow her uniform and still able to play in the game that day. You would think that over time, I would have learned my lesson, that I wouldn't leave my jersey anywhere, right? That I would take it with me if I needed it. Fast forward to when I was in college, not just a freshman in college, I think I was a junior, maybe sophomore, junior. We were in charge of taking our jerseys with us to different games at times. And we went to a tournament where we had to have multiple jerseys, multiple different shorts, and I left mine at home. I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to play because I left my jersey at home. My coach said, well, you're going to have to find a teammate that's going to let you use their jersey. Otherwise, you're just not going to play. And so I was very thankful that a friend of mine was willing to give up her jersey so that I could play. It just was so frustrating to me that I was in college. I should have learned this lesson and I still forgot my jersey. Now it's something that I can look back on and laugh at. It's not an intentional thing. It happens sometimes. And it can be easy for us to look at our kid and say, how could you forget this? Like, this is a very simple thing that you should be able to remember. How could you forget to take your homework back to school? It goes back in your backpack. But these are things that kids with ADHD can often struggle with. They can get frustrated, and then when we get frustrated at them, it can make it even worse. Other examples for inattentive ADHD are my kid often forgets to do things even when we constantly remind them. The smallest distraction throw my kid off a task. My child has trouble following instructions and finishing tasks. Okay, these are signs of ADHD hyperactivity in kids. They act as if he or she is driven by a motor and is constantly on the go. They always seem to be squirming in the chair or fidgeting. No matter how hard he or she tries, my child has problems remaining seated, even when he or she is supposed to. They get up and run around, climb during class or in other situations where they should stay seated. My kid talks a lot, even when he or she has nothing to say. They often interfere in the classroom because they have difficulty engaging in quiet activities without disturbing others. In class or at home, my child blurts out answers to questions before they are fully asked. My child has difficulty waiting patiently to take turns and frequently butts ahead in lines or grabs toys from playmates. Sometimes my child seems intrusive. He or she constantly interrupts other people's activities, conversations, and games. And these are just some of those symptoms. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I am just a mom who has ADHD, and I also have a child with ADHD. So I have experience in what it was like growing up as a kid and also how it is trying to parent kids with ADHD. This is part 1 of understanding your ADHD child, and in part 2, we are going to talk more in depth about some of the different struggles that our kids may have and ways that we can speak truth into those struggles and encourage them to continue to keep trying, not to focus on perfection, but to focus on improvement and putting these routines and things in place so that they can be successful. If you heard this and you enjoyed it, I would really appreciate it if you would post a review, if you would share it with another mom. I'm thankful for you and that you've taken the time to listen to this, and I pray that God will encourage you through it. Until next time, choose joy. Before you go, I want you to hear this. You are not failing, you are not forgotten, and you are not meant to do this alone. Whatever hard thing you're walking through today, God sees you and His grace is sufficient for you. May you feel the nearness of Jesus as you step back into your day, and may His strength meet you exactly when yours runs out. Until next time, keep showing up, keep leaning on Him, and keep choosing joy.